Hello again and welcome to my podcast. You're listening to me, Lee Bestall, also known as the Northern Designer. In my series of podcasts, I'll be chatting with industry professionals from all aspects of the design world, focusing in on plants whenever I can. Today, I'm once again joined by the fabulous horticulturalist Dawn Evans, and we've called this podcast The Holly and the Ivy. Dawn, which one are you?
Definitely ivy. Absolutely. Okay. Clinging. You can't get rid of me, Lee, can you?
No, quite difficult to kill.
Absolutely. Definitely ivy for
Although
me.
every time I see you, you've always got a cold or something. Today's no exception.
Lee, I know. Do you know, it feels like I've been rubbing poinsettia juice in my gums this morning, honestly. I've had COVID and now a cold, so I'm a bit chesty, so I do apologise.
And you hurt your back?
I've got TENS machine on. Yeah.
One of those net wrapping things.
So trapped nerve in my bottom of my spine. I'm okay. You can't kill ivy again. I keep going.
I just want to be clear. For anybody watching this on YouTube, it doesn't say old dear on the top of your hat. It says oh dear.
Oh dear. It should be old dear, shouldn't it?
So if you're listening and you can't see us, we've got Christmas jumpers on. This is our Christmas special. And today we're going to be talking all about plants which are associated with Christmas. So, Dawn, what plant are we going to start off with today?
Lee, I thought I'd start with one of the old favourites, poinsettia. So, Euphorbia pulcherrima. So sorry, everybody.
Lots of people don't know it's a euphorbia, do they?
No. If you break a leaf, a bract, the milky sap comes out. That's a sign that it's the euphorbia family.
Yeah. Which,
do be careful because it can be an eye and skin irritant. But yeah, it is definitely the euphorbia family. It's not going on the leaves or bracts. It is based on the sexual parts of a flower that they're grouped together as a family.
Yeah, because they lots of people think that they're kind of in flower at this time of year, but they're actually quite difficult to get in flower, aren't they?
Yeah, they usually flower from December to January as a rule, but it's actually the bracts we're looking at. So the really bright, colourful, what look like leaves or flowers are the bracts which colour up due to the short days of autumn. So our native trees, when they go turn the nice, beautiful reds and shades of oranges in autumn, is due to the shortening days of autumn. Right. And that's exactly the same for poinsettias.
So and don't they stimulate the change in the leaf colour when, artificially, when they're producing them commercially? Yeah,
they do. They control temperature and daylight. So when they want them to colour up early, they'll shorten the hours of daylight with no interruptions from artificial light. So generally in this country, we use them as a 1 year plant, a pot plant to throw away after Christmas,
like a bunch
if you
of flowers,
like.
really,
just like a bunch of flowers. But in theory, they are a perennial tender house plant, so you can get them to go for many years. Right. But to get them to colour up again, you do need to start giving them between 12 and 14 hours of darkness from September, which means keeping them, either covering them up or keeping them in a dark room for at least 12 hours, no interrupted light, not even to go in and switch a light on for 5 minutes. Really? That will stop it from colouring up.
So you can't go for a wee in the middle of the night?
Absolutely not. Not if your poinsettia's in there, you've got to do it in braille, I'm afraid.
Because I've had a lot of, mainly family members who have clung on to this, 5 stalks, basically, and it's got 3 little green shoots at the top of it, and they say, I don't want to throw it away. Yeah. I'm quite ruthless with poinsettia, and I'm like, once it starts looking grim in January, February, get it on the compost heap.
Yeah, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to do it. So what cool facts have you got about the poinsettia?
Excuse me, I do apologise, everybody. So basically, care. Looking after poinsettias, people think it's difficult. It's not really, but the main thing is don't put them in a drafty place. They will not tolerate drafts. When the bracts start drooping or dropping off, it's due to the fact they've been stored in a place that's too chilly, or you've got them in a draft. Overwatering can cause botrytis, like a grey mould on them. And the secret is let them dry out slightly on the soil surface, then dip them in tepid water, then take them out and let them drain.
So you're going to kind of plunge it in a bit like you would with an orchid.
You can water it from above as well, but if you leave it a while, it dries out slightly, then just in tepid water for a short while and then let it dry out again. Yeah. But definitely not in a draft.
Okay.
You can miss them as well.
So drafty locations in your house.
In the house.
Presuming that's near a door.
Oh, crack it!
Even
windowsill.
An internal door.
People put them on windowsills, and it's a big no-no. Okay. So you think the day temperature? Chances are on a windowsill it's going to be over a radiator. Yeah. Which dries it out.
True.
So fluctuating temperatures don't help. Then at night time the temperature drops massively, and you imagine if you put your hand on your window at night, especially when it's frosty out, it's really cold. That's coming straight into the plant. And then what do people do with curtains? Draw the curtains at night, making a nice little frost pocket for the poinsettia.
Lock the cold in.
Absolutely. Don't put them on the windowsill. Again, some people put them in earth. I've I do it, I'll be honest with you. So I've got a Welsh slate hearth, and they look nice on there, but you have to be careful because they're drafty. Hearths tend to be drafty.
Yeah.
So on a table away from the window is fantastic. Good light, but not direct sunlight as well. And if you all wanted to bring it on for next year and have a bash, because it's exciting to do it. If you can get it to colour up, it's exciting to do. So you need to cut it back hard in April. Wear gloves because the milky sap, like I say, is an irritant. And then, like I say, give it a feed in spring, something high in potassium. Tomato feed is fantastic.
Okay.
And then you can even put it outside.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For if in the warmer temperatures of summer, not direct. Yeah. And then when you bring it back in from September, 12 to 14 hours of interrupted darkness to bring them to colour up.
So I'm thinking practically, you're either going to have to put that in a room where you close the curtains and don't go in it, or put a black bag or something.
Some people
over it
put black bin bags over them, but you've got to. It is tricky because you've got to allocate the nighttime hours as well. So depending on your hours of work, like if like me, you get up and it's still dark, like yourself, and you go early doors and it's still dark, you've got to factor in. I'm going to be going to work in a bit, and
true.
you know you've got to have. But have a go. It's worth having a go.
It sounds like a retirement project, keeping a poinsettia.
Absolutely.
I think it's just easier to grow a new one.
And then the other thing, Lee, is bear in mind when you buy them from garden centres or shops, they're nice bushy habit because the plant growers have used a growth suppressant. So when you after that and you bring it back on, you've cut it back and it's put on growth, it will tend to grow tall and leggy. It's natural habit.
That on me. I'm not very tall.
I think I'm still using it. I mean, I wash my hair in a bit of plants. Absolutely
so
suppressant.
You can spray it with a growth suppressant and that keeps it nice and compact.
Yeah, that's what the growers will do to keep it nice and bushy.
So then if you did next year cut it back and grow it on, it's not going to be compact and bushy, is it?
No, it'll grow spindly.
But
then again, if you've got a space where it allows it to grow and look natural, it's quite nice, and it will get these big nice red bracts on if you've done the temperatures right and the dark house. That's the main thing, the hours of darkness.
They sound to me like probably one of the most unsustainable houseplants that you could probably grow. But thinking about it, if you grow any houseplant, if it's not in the right location and you've got to create an environment for it, how sustainable are they? Maybe sustainability is a talk for another day, but it just feels like there's a lot of effort goes into making that.
But you hit the nail on the head, Lee. You said earlier it's like a bunch of flowers. So you think you're going to bring that bunch of flowers in you buy it from wherever, florist, wherever, supermarket, put them in water, and they look nice for a couple of weeks if you're lucky. And then you put them on the compost heap. With a poinsettia, you have got the option to carry on.
Yeah.
And don't forget, they're still doing you good for aesthetically pleasing and purifying air to a certain amount, taking in carbon dioxide, giving off oxygen. So it's a benefit. It's much better than, say, having an ornament or artificial flowers, isn't it? So it's definitely worth flowering. And nothing says Christmas like a bright red poinsettia, does it?
No, that's true. I love the white ones. I think, I'd love to have a white one on the hearth of the fireplace. I've got a log burner, so I'm not going to have the problems of the draft, but I have got a rabbit who's probably going to nibble it, and they are toxic, aren't they,
you must be careful.
to pets and children even. They can cause rashes and stuff. I had a client who had... They took their kids to the park and they got some, like you make potions and stuff when you're children. They got this euphorbia, chopped it up, made a face cream out of it because it looks like latex. Well, it is latex. So they put it on their cheek. It's really bad. It wasn't very nice, and I think scarred for quite a long time.
Oh, that's terrible. It sounds like something they do in the Victorian times. We talked about last week, the deadly nightshade, isn't it? Yeah.
So it is one to be careful of. But still, most plants enjoy them at a distance.
Softwood cuttings you could take in May, but like I say, do wear gloves if you're going to give it a bash. So the places you find them is Mexico, but originally the ancient Aztecs first cultivated poinsettias, symbolise of purity and peace, and they used it to make bright red dyes for the clothes as well. It has lots of traditions, which I'm just going through here, because lots of countries have different traditions. So in Mexico, which I think of poinsettia, I think of Mexico, it was said that a poor child, a young girl, placed weeds on the altar in Christmas Eve service as an offering. And throughout the service and the congregation, the weeds turned into bright red and green poinsettias and was said to symbolise a miracle of Christmas. And to this day, I do understand that Mexicans do believe that.
Right. I'm not sure my Vic would be too chuffed if I took some petals and put them on his altar, but...
Bless you. In the UK, it symbolises love, goodwill and community spirit.
Right.
and hope.
So community spirit. So would it be a nice gift then to
This
kind
is
of,
it, yeah.
to give to someone?
And because we get them usually around about, usually beginning of November, mid-November, and they look nice and bright. They are a nice gift to give someone. If you're going to visit before Christmas and you're taking them something, rather a bunch of flowers, a nice poinsettia as community spirit and goodwill and hope for the future. So that's a nice one to do. And in religious communities, the shape of the flower is supposed to represent the Star of Bethlehem and the bright red bricks, the blood of Christ. But they do go on in Turkey and in all these other countries. They have lots of different meanings. So it's all different. So
it is quite significant then as a plant around Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. But the main thing is to remember, if you take them home, if you do buy them, like say, even down to going on a cold frosty day, can you not go another day when it's quite warmer? Because you've got to get it from the garden centre to your car, if your car to your home, which sounds like I'm being over cautious, but that cold snap is enough to just get it to drop its leaves. Right. If you go to garden centre, with the garden centre I go to, we do have them in sleeves or offer them a sleeve. Ask for one if it doesn't come with one, so you can get it to the car straight inside in a warm environment, not on a windowsill.
Okay. And I think you've re-inspired me to get a poinsettia.
Do it, Lee. I'm going
to
buy a white
one. But I saw some really cute, dinky ones. They were like, I don't know, 200 mil high or something.
Yeah, you do get some called poinsettias, really, which are smaller. And you haven't got to go just red. I like, with yourself, we were speaking earlier, I like the white ones. There's some beautiful ones. There's one called Glitter, which is a red one with big splashes of white across it. That's unusual. And you get salmon ones and pink, pale pink, pearl. You haven't got to just go red if you don't wish. So there's lots of choice.
Yeah, you could do a nice tablescape, couldn't you? Like a nice table display.
Yeah, absolutely.
With them,
if you get some of the little poinsettias, you group them together, plant them up in threes with some moss round, or with a hellebore, a Christmas rose in the background of it with the s'mores. You can do all sorts. You've not got to just use one as a specimen one.
Oh, I feel like we should make one of those.
I think we should. I think we should have brought some in. You could have done one today, couldn't you?
Yeah, let's do one Christmas Eve. You're coming around Christmas Eve, aren't you?
I'm coming around Christmas Eve.
Yeah, let's do that Christmas Eve. Okay, so is that it? Is that
unless you've got any questions about poinsettias, I think I've exhausted that.
I don't think so. There was more there than I thought. So another plant which is very kind of synonymous with Christmas is mistletoe.
Mistletoe, yeah.
So tell us, like, do you know how that started? Because wasn't there was a song? What is it? Deck the Hall with Boughs of Holly.
Yeah.
And the bough was like I think it's 4 circles that they put together and hung up, and they put mistletoe in that, and you could kiss underneath it and take one berry off, and when your berries had run out, your kisses had run out.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
That was the old story.
Yeah.
And then I think over time we edited it a bit and just went straight in with the mistletoe.
I didn't know that. Yeah. And so in times of COVID, they took all the berries off, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there were no
kisses
berries.
at COVID time. Just boughs of holly. Bless.
Yeah, that'll keep people away with all those prickles, isn't it?
and for this reason, we've not sold mistletoe since before Christmas.
No.
Sorry, not Christmas. COVID.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a mistletoe come and kiss me. And
was
now
that a company
dose of
decision to not do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is a wise decision. You don't want to be encouraging passing COVID on, do you? So
no, I never thought about that. I've not seen any this year, but Wow.
So mistletoe, yeah. So Viscum album, it's native to our country. It's found mainly in the South and West Midlands, but you can find it tends to be spreading more. It's an evergreen plant, semi-parasitically. So you find it growing on branches of trees like apple, hawthorn, lime. But it doesn't kill the trees at all, but it can weaken it because it's semi-parasitic. So it has got evergreen leaves, which photosynthesize. But it taps its roots into the branches of the tree and extracts nutrients and moisture. Okay. So it's semi-parasitic.
It's weird then that it was associated with kind of romance and love, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's a parasitic plant. Or maybe they didn't know that at the time when they first discovered it.
It's a fantastic plant, isn't it? It grows in large balls, usually about 1 metre across, and you're driving down the road and you see a lime tree, or apple trees in this country are quite renowned for it. But they tend to be declining. Due to the fact that old orchards are declining too. Right. Yeah, so let's hope not, 'cause it's a lovely plant.
Interesting that you said it was mainly found in the kind of Midlands, because we were in Shropshire earlier this year and we saw like huge, almost like a forest full of it.
Yeah.
And they must have been, they definitely weren't apple trees because they were really tall. You could see them on the horizon. And it makes for a really spectacular sight. And you don't notice it in the rest of the year, do you?
No.
Even though it's evergreen, you can't because
the leaves
trees that are on,
I mean, they do grow on poplars as well. So
Right.
you might have been some, and I think Herefordshire tend to have a lot of mistletoe as well.
Right.
Where I am, Nottinghamshire way, I see it regular, and I'm driving to work, and it's lovely to see.
If you've got an apple tree, then can you grow it yourself?
You can. You need to harvest and use fresh seed. Right. So if you're buying sprigs from a supermarket or wherever you buy mistletoe from, chances are it's not going to work. It needs to be fresh. Right. You need to harvest the berries, squash the seeds out. Say if you're going to use an apple tree, normally you'll tend to use a similar tree to what you've took it off, and you need permission of someone living there. Don't go climb over someone's fence and obviously scrump mistletoe. So if you take it off an apple tree, tend to plant it on an apple tree. Okay. You're looking for a branch around about 10 centimetres in diameter, no less. You've got to think of the weight of the mistletoe as well. Also, you're looking for a tree about at least 15 years or older to grow it on. Okay. You want to be growing it high up as well so it can photosynthesize, because it's got to compete with leaves and things, even though it's tapping in for the nutrients. In the wild, what normally happens is birds, usually mistle thrush, they usually eat the berries. And the berries and the seeds inside the berries are covered in a gloopy pulp, and that sticks to the birds' beaks. Right. And as they wipe it off on the branch, if they don't wipe it off the beak onto the branch, it comes out the other end. Yeah. I swear to God, every week we mention poop, but they poop it out the other end, and if it wedges in the crevice of a branch, it starts to germinate. And then it puts out roots, and hence it starts taking nutrients off there. But if you're going to do it yourself, do plant quite a few, because usually it's 1 in 10 that germinate. Oh, really? So you're going to need to plant a few.
There's no wonder it's in decline then, is there? Because you've got to wait for a bird to come and eat it or scrape it off its beak into the appropriately sized branch, into a tree similar to the one you got it off, and only 1 in 10 germinate. And then some swang comes, takes it down, kisses under it, and nicks all the berries.
Cover it if you're going to do it, Lee. Cover it with hessian or something like that to protect it from the birds eating it as well.
Oh right.
Yeah. It's worth having a go if you've got an old apple tree. But like I say, it wants to be at least 15 years. Or
I didn't
more.
realise they grew to a metre in diameter.
Yeah, they can do.
Massive.
Yeah. Sometimes they're bigger if it's the right conditions for it. But it's amazing.
Is it really
to
slow growing?
Yeah, it's not overly quick, even though it's semi-parasitic. And like I say, I want to stress, if you're going to do this, don't kill your tree. It will just weaken it. So be mindful of that. So you want a healthy apple tree for listeners who want to give it a go. But do give it a go. It's definitely worth it.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I'm much more excited about that than propagating a poinsettia.
Just looking if there's anything else we need to cover on that, Lee. Birds eat it, blah, blah, blah. 1 in 10 will germinate. Sorry, I'm just flicking through my notes because really...
Yeah, you always do so much research before these because your knowledge is fantastic anyway, and you always come out with these cool, interesting facts.
You think so, Lee? The older you get, for ladies of a certain age, menopause, fog. I know I must mention that every week as well.
Yeah, you do.
What I wanted to say as well, also male and female are needed, because they are...
Is this the menopause or the...
Not menopause, although yes, I swear that some men have menopause as well. But yeah, so because they are dioecious, we meaning male, male and female flowers need to get the berries. So that's another point. You'll need to do plenty because you're not know if you're going to get males or females. So you need to do plenty. Okay. If you can't find natural crevices, you can just slit the bark and make a flap to insert the seeds. Yeah. I've known people to not even remove the seed, just squash the seed in, but there's a chance of it rotting, so you are better to remove it.
Yeah. So only 1 in 10, and 50% of those might be a bloke.
Yeah. And the gloopy pulp around the seed hardens once it's on. It hardens like a glue, sticks the seed there, so that the plant don't move as well in the wind and blow off until it makes its own roots.
Clever,
it's fantastic, isn't it?
So
isn't it amazing? Yeah.
So how many years does it take to get to kind of burying stage once you've sowed the seed?
It's usually about 5 years, Lee, from doing it yourself by pushing the seeds in the crevice and it growing up to 5 years to maturity to produce berries. Right. If it's the female one, it needs a male. A long-term kiss. This is not a one-night stand plant. You've got to go full term, at least 5 years.
I love all your stories as well. Like you always come out with these like mythical kind of things that are associated with these old plants. Have we got any stories around that?
There must be absolutely millions, but I've just narrowed it down to a couple. So mythology and symbolism. In Greek mythology, heroes were granted passage to the underworld if they carried mistletoe with them. So that's always It's interesting to know, isn't it? If you want to go to the underground, Lee, start growing now, you're going to have 5 years wait. Druids believed it was protect them from witches and evil and the devil, and cured for diseases as well. So that's a good one. And then pagan society, it represented divine male essence. So it sounds like a Christmas aftershave, doesn't it? Divine
I was just going to say
male
that,
essence. Get onto that.
By David.
Mistletoe by Druids. So in the Middle Ages, it was associated with fertility and vitality.
Well, I guess the fertility link makes sense, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
all
yeah,
starts with
absolutely.
a kiss under the mistletoe.
I think that's where you need to a kiss and then build up from there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then you're into the underworld.
Yeah.
So holly is the next.
Absolutely. I love a bit of
I
holly,
thought we had a
don't
nice
you?
tenuous link then. I spoilt that. I was going to say from plants that need a male and a female into...
Yeah, hermaphrodite and male and female also. It's all in there.
Yeah.
The holly, the Ilex aquifolium. Again, these are dioecious plants, Lee, so you'll need a male and a female to get the berries.
Yeah.
Unless you go for something like J.C. Van Tol, and that's a self-fertile female.
It is a great one, that one. We've used it a lot as
Absolutely.
standards, but
Yeah.
it's a swine to transplant. If you get a container grown
Yeah.
one, I find they transplant really easily.
Yeah.
But if you use a root balled one,
Yeah.
they don't like being disturbed, do they, hollies? In my experience.
Yeah, I've got one in my garden, but I planted years and years ago,
Yeah.
and I've no trouble. I've never transplanted them.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, any tips on how to successfully transplant?
No. Yeah.
Moving on.
Well, I mean, in my experience, planting container grown ones, which have been containerized for at least a year, because the problem with evergreens is they take such a long time to die. Which is sounds weird. So basically, if you plant a root balled hedge, it can sit there from November all the way through till April, and you think, it's fine, it's taken, and then it comes to May and June, it starts drying out, and then you think, that's but it could have died from transplant shot quite a while ago. It's just it kind of just preserves itself, doesn't it? You know it's like you bring some holly in the house and it looks good for quite a few weeks, and the hollies look okay, but it's not until afterwards that you realize that they've died. So I would say grow pot grown ones that have been in the pot for at least a year.
And maybe using mycorrhiza, Lee. Do you think that, Adele, by using mycorrhiza and making sure the mycorrhiza is in contact with the roots?
Yeah,
I mean, sending them out for.
We always struggle with that, because when you're planting a root balled plant, the hessian is freshly wrapped around the root ball to keep it intact, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the mycorrhiza doesn't have to be.
It has to be in contact. I would
with
remove the hessian. And make sure that it must be in contact with the roots.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, mycorrhizas and mycelium, it's a natural thing that is in the soils, but it latches onto the roots and it puts out mycelium, which grows quicker than plants and trees can put out roots, and it brings back nutrients to the plant.
Yeah.
It lives in a symbiotic relationship, and for reward for doing that, it takes nutrients from the holly. Because it can't photosynthesize, because fungus, obviously is a fungus, it can't photosynthesize, so it takes sugars from the plant in a symbiotic relationship. So they work together, so it's not parasitic.
Oh, that's very Christmassy.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
They're helping each other.
Yeah, so they do work together, so they look after each other. And the mycelium just puts out hyphae much quicker than plants can put out roots.
Yeah.
So
we've had amazing success using that when we've used bare root things, because obviously we use like a gel as well, so it sticks to the roots. So that's a really good thing. But I always tell our staff not to take the root ball off, because with taxus and things, it can just, all the soil can fall off. It's a bit dangerous. So we'd stick to planting containerized ones. Anyway, enough about planting holly.
Okay.
What about the Christmassy aspects of holly?
So I thought to start, obviously it's evergreen shrub. Mature trees can get to approximately 15 metres, and they can live up to 300 years. So
can they?
Yeah, so it's a good one if you're wanting to plant for not just our generations, future generations, your children, your grandchildren. So that's a nice one. The spiky leaves come mainly on the younger foliage, on the juvenile foliage. As they mature, they usually change shapes of leaves. They're not as spiky. And the mistletoe thrush, bringing the mistletoe thrush back in, he guards holly berries with his life through winter, so the other birds don't eat it. It's not enough that he eats the mistletoe because he wants to eat them. So he'll eat the mistletoe berries, and then he'll guard the holly berries, thinking,
later in the year.
Yeah.
That's like his little pantry for spring.
Absolutely. Don't mess with a mistletoe thrush.
Wow.
So yeah, the berries of holly in winter to prevent them from being eaten. Mythology and symbolism. Do you want to move on to that?
Yeah.
So it's seen as a fertility symbol again, and charm against witches, goblins, and the devil again. And it's thought to be unlucky to cut down a holly tree. So if you've got a holly tree in the garden, if you're superstitious, things like it's supposed to be unlucky. So think twice before taking an axe to your holly. Yeah.
But pruning it a little bit in a festive season is okay.
It's absolutely okay. I would recommend it. And it's supposed to be the whitest of all woods. Before it's stained, so that's nice if you're making anything, because I know you're just getting into woodwork, so that's one for you if you decide to make something out of holly. That'd be nice, actually, doing something out of holly for your house.
Yeah, but if you were going to make it out of holly, you'd have to cut it down first, wouldn't you? And then
only a
branch.
Be bad luck. Not all of it, only a branch.
Okay, so you can make stuff out of branches of holly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just don't cut the main tree. What time of year would you prune holly? Because I know we take some off at Christmas, but is that the right time of year to prune it?
Yeah, you don't have to. Because it is relatively slow growing, and if it just gets untidy, you can just snip a branch off of it as it spurts out in probably late spring. But you don't have to. Like I say, you do prune it nearer to Christmas for your own use, but it doesn't hurt it, does it?
But you do it normally like April time, same as other evergreens.
Absolutely. I want to say again, male and female, if you wanted to get berries. So if you wanted to buy to get berries for Christmas, you want a male and a female. A male will service 20 females. I know.
Really?
So just if you're wanting a garden full, you only need one male. The varieties, I will say, be careful, because I don't know why this is. The uncanny, the naming.
It always catches me out.
Absolutely. So Golden King is female. I've written them down here, so for listeners who want to buy. Golden Queen is male. Golden King is female. Then another one for female is Argentine Marginata, which is okay. Silver Queen is male. Silver Mermaid is female. A good one for spiking us all around the hedgehog holly is Ferox Argentea, which is male. So it has spikes round the edges of the leaf and also on the tops. So it's like a hedgehog. So they call it, I think they call it, is it silver hedgehog?
That's particularly nice for making a wreath with.
Absolutely. But also if you're thinking for popping around your fence lines for
security.
Theft and security. Absolutely. Stop people climbing over your garden. So that's a good one. I wouldn't want to shin over a fence and then land in a silver holly. Absolutely not.
No.
And then JC Vantol, which is a self-fertile female.
Yeah.
So with this one, you only need the one plant and it will berry, whether you've got a male in the garden or not. But you can plant more to get more berries. So if you plant a male within close proximity of a bee flying from one to the other, it'll put more berries. But it will do it with just itself. Right. So if you're only going to get one, go for the JC Vantol.
It's funny because I've got this image in my head now of one male holly, which is something queen, which doesn't sound like he's going to pollinate many of the 20 females that are all stood there waiting. And JC Vantol, she's having a right laugh. She's at the bar on her own because she doesn't need a bloke.
She don't need a bloke, absolutely. And I say
the world of hollies.
Absolutely. And I know I say this every week about plants, but they do just blow my mind. The fact that you'll get some that's male, some that's female, and some that don't need a male or female. I mean, can you imagine if that was us? If it's a species, we don't need a partner. You know, me, myself and I, how much easier would life be, you know?
Well.
And then moving on, this is not Christmas, but like violets. So they have a thing called cleistogamy, meaning closed marriage. And what they'll do is they'll flower, and then on the plant they'll have smaller flowers that don't open as in reserve for if they don't get pollinated and time's getting on. They're thinking, you know, I've got these small flowers not opened, and they'll do it themselves.
Like Bridget Jones kind of thing.
Well, let's not go down that route. Nearly walked into that one, didn't I?
Let's bring Dawn back from that tangent, back into the world of holly.
So that's cleistogamy, and a lot of plants do that. So, you know, it's absolutely amazing. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Trim holly. I would say late spring or early summer, to be fair, and obviously trim off in near winter for Christmas. So minimal pruning, and any diseased branches prune off in spring.
Because they can get like a leaf mite.
A leaf spot, isn't it?
It like goes like brown tissue paper almost.
Just prune it out, burn it, don't compost it, burn it on. If you're in a bonfire, just burn that as well. But other than that, they're relatively pest and disease free. You don't get too much trouble with them, do you?
No. I do find them very slow growing. They are fantastic for a hedge. So if you do want a hedge, you know, which is evergreen. My granddad had an amazing holly hedge. outside the front of his house. And I remember it was always really, really spiky. But I'm thinking that's because he constantly used to cut it. So he trimmed it as a hedge every year. And therefore, you're always producing new growth, aren't you? Which is very spiky. Yeah. I think if you're a flower arranger or you're making, a wreath or some Christmas decorations for your hearth, you want to use the older stuff from further up the tree, don't you? Which is less spiky, because it's so difficult to work with. I've known florists at the end of Christmas and their hands are bleeding because they've used that much holly. So get a ladder and climb a bit further up the tree.
And of course it's native to this country, Lee, as well. You usually see it thriving in oak and beech woodlands, so I like to stay native if possible. I know we've talked about the poinsettia and things, but ivy and holly, they're good staples, aren't they?
Yeah. Christmas decorations, natural Christmas decorations, I think are it's so rewarding to kind of grow things. I'd love to have a house with a garden big enough to have a winter garden. And I think absolutely. That would be a Christmas cutting garden. So I'd have dogwoods and the holly and the ivy and things. And you could grow them, within your own garden. But I'd love to have a dedicated Christmas decoration garden where you could grow Christmas trees and just prune bits off it to make your wreaths and stuff. Christmas We've used alliums this year, some massive they're similar to Christophii. The Purple Sensation I think are a bit small, but the Christophii ones are nice.
And we've got big head on them,
so we've got some called Pinball Wizard. We actually grew them in a client's garden, and she had so many of them she dried them, and I went and borrowed some of them and hung them upside down in the roof of with some twigs and fairy lights, and I've got some birch sticks in there, and it just feels so nice.
Did you use them naturally or did you spray them? Because you can spray them, can't you?
Yeah, you can. No, I've not. I was tempted to spray them coppery actually, because I think that's quite an on-trend colour this year, but I left them natural. They drop the odd seed out, so you just need to be careful if you've got a cup of tea under there or a glass of port, but I gave them a good shake, and I think I'm going to leave them up for the whole of winter.
I might try that actually. That sounds good. So that's another one to use. And also, if you've got roses in your garden that have hips on, this time of year, go out and cut a length of that. And they, if you get a long length, they're nice to entwine around ivy if you haven't got many berries on, and over a shelf from mantelpiece. And that just looks nice with the red berries. Looks very festive.
Yeah. Talking of ivy,
back to me. So this is Hedria, English ivy, Hedria helix, and this is the ginseng family. And these are shade tolerant, evergreen. And I know ivy ivy has really bad publicity for taking over things and growing up sides of houses and things. But I love it, and I know you do, Lee.
Massive
I love
fan
it.
Of ivy.
And researchers have looked into ivy, and they're saying now that if you grow ivy, as long as it's a secure wall, so the mortar in is sound. In summer it helps to keep your house cool, and in winter it stops damp. So, and it protects your brickwork from the elements. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm bought into that already. You've seen on my back garden, I've got it all. Miles off keeps trying to chop it down after watching him.
I know, because the problem is when you do start to cut it down, you get those little fine aerial roots, don't you? And they're almost like hairs that stick into the brickwork, and they're a nightmare to get out. So, I'd say grow it where you want it, but where you want to keep it, and don't let it grow. Yeah. If it starts growing on your window frames and stuff, I mean, it depends how romantic you are, doesn't it? I love to see a house covered in ivy, and the birds love it.
They do. And ivy, with you saying the aerial roots, Lee, that tends to grow on juvenile growth again. So juvenile growth of ivy tends to shoot up quite rapid up the walls, and they'll want to grow vertical, and they grow quite quickly. As the plant matures, the growth habit, it has two phases. It goes into an adult phase and it slows down, and rather than shooting up, putting aerial roots on, it slows down and becomes more shrubby. The leaf shape gets more lobed, and it tends to put on flowers and then berries. So if you're constantly cutting back at your ivy, it won't have time to be adult phase, so it won't put on flowers and then berries, because again, them berries are nice not just for the birds that live on them in winter, but also to bring into your house as decoration. Again, that's something else you can use, isn't it, that looks really nice.
The mature foliage is quite different as well from a lot of people don't know it's ivy when they first look at it, because the flowers are really nice, quite architectural, quite contemporary looking. And then the berries, I mean, we've got a few here in this display with these hellebores. And the berries on the ivy, I think they're massively underrated.
They are. And ivy is so versatile as well, because it'll tolerate shade. Some will tolerate sun as long as it's not dry where you've grown it. And you get different types as well. I mean, there's one called Buttercup, which got yellow foliage. It's a really nice one, absolutely beautiful. Sulphur Heart, which is a dark green with a big splash of yellow in the centre. You think of ivy, it's not just dark green, you know, there's some really nice ones. The English ivy, common ivy, does tend to prefer alkaline soils. Right. If you've got acidic soil, I would be tempted to go for the Persian ivy. It's called Chica, is it, Lee? I think it's called Chica, the Persian one. That will tolerate more acidic soil. So there's one for every aspect and every soil in your garden. Whether it be sun or shade. And so versatile, there's climbing, ground cover ones as well. You can use them in containers, hanging baskets. So literally, I know it's got bad press, but as long as you keep on top of it and you've got understanding neighbours, you know, that don't mind your fence covered in ivy.
I tend to find it's blokes that don't like ivy generally, because it's a funny thing, but they just don't seem to be a fan of it. And I don't know if it's that control freak in you who's like, you can't control it because it runs faster than you can kind of manage it. I'm not sure if it's that, or if it's, you know, because they're the ones that have to go up and cut it. I don't know, but it does tend to be.
It sounds like you're talking about Miles Roth. He likes everything in the garden. He treats it as bonsai. So I don't like him in the garden very often. I sweat profusely when I see him walking out the back door with secateurs or loppers. I think, oh God, the hive is going to get it today. But no,
it looks great in a wreath as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And this year I've been looking at more sustainable options for wreaths, because that foam that you use, like it feels like the days of foam is kind of
Oasis.
It feels like the days of using that is kind of limited. So I've been looking at more sustainable methods, and you can get like a metal ring, and then you wrap hay around it. So you put kind of chunks of hay around around the ring. I nearly said around your ring. Put hay around the ring, and then put the like wire or twine or raffia or something. And apparently it lasts for about 4 years, because if you dry it out, you can use it again. So you can use that year on year, and then you can put your ivy, because if you get nice long pieces, you can kind of wrap it round the circle, because they stand for eternal life, don't they? Wreaths. That's what I mean. I think they were originally like a military thing, weren't they? And you were given a wreath as a kind of a reward if you'd, you know, in the military, if you'd done something outstanding, a wreath was given.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the association with wreaths on poppy on Remembrance.
Wow, that makes sense, doesn't it? Why they lay a wreath at the centre.
Yeah, so that wreath is kind of the sign of eternal life, which is obviously, you know, it's a Christian thing, but it goes back further than that. Wreaths started, you know, years and years before that. And I think that ivy, those long lengths of ivy, you could tie them in, and that gives you a good base. And then you put all your other evergreen foliage in and a few flowers. And then if you dunk it in a big jug of water, the hay absorbs all the moisture, and just mist it, and it will stay on your door, you know, quite happily outside for, I would say, probably a month, you know, without it starting to look a bit dodgy.
I would never have thought of that. That's fantastic. I actually thought he was going to say moss or something.
Well, there's talk of moss being, you know, unsustainable, isn't there? And it looks, I think where you can see moss, it's a beautiful thing, but actually it gets hidden in a wreath.
Yeah, it does,
So, you know, unless you're getting moss out of your garden, scraping it out of your lawn, I think I'm going to try the hay one this year.
I think that's one to try. I think that's a fantastic idea. So watch this. You'll come round and you'll see something resembling Wurzel Gummidge's head with bits of poinsettia bracts
like a scarecrow wreath.
So they're very versatile. Pruning, just the excess growth, really, like we talked about. Also, other than that, it's pretty easy going. I've got growing up my wall, and I've got a little mouse nest in there. And he sometimes comes out, and I put nuts out. He swings from the bird feeders, little tiny mouse,
like a gym.
Yeah, and I think it's a wood mouse, because I read that they go in the nests of old birds' nests to make them. And I followed him through when I heard him. He came out and then he ran back in. I thought, where is he? Where's he nesting? And he was in a little tiny bird's nest. And I thought, how cute is that?
That is
ran
cute.
Upstairs and shut all the bedroom windows. But it was so cute to see him outside in a nest. I love mice. I'm not frightened of them, but if they get in your house, you do have to be careful, because they do like wires and absolutely. So we've talked about varieties, which is Buttercup, which is one of my favourites. Do Google it, the listeners. It's really nice, bright yellow foliage. Have you never seen it, Lee? It does not appeal to you?
No, I'm not a massive fan of variegated plants or like yellowy foliage. I don't know.
Everyone to their own, but I just think it's unusual. Oh, going back to the variegated ones, Lee, because you get the plain green or the variegated. If you see any throwing just plain green shoots off, cut them off because it's trying to revert back. So it'll be a cross with something or hybridized, whatever, and it's trying to revert back. So cut that off, or so it'll grow more vigorous than the variegated.
I think that sounds like a good thing.
And
I'd be cutting the yellow stuff off.
I know you would. I know, bless you. It will revert back, and it'll grow much more vigorous and take over the variegation. So if you want to keep your nice variegation, Lee, as I know you like, snip the outgrowths off of that. Symbolism, again, fidelity. Wedded love, friendship and affection. Oh. So I should have bought you a potted ivy, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I should have done.
You berries.
And years ago, it was said that if you used to drink alcohol from a goblet carved out from the wood of ivy, it subsided the ill effects of alcohol, didn't have an effect. If only, if only. I don't know if that's true, but and even to the fact they believed it so much that years ago, they used to have big poles outside of places you could buy alcohol surrounded by ivy growing up it, and they called them ale stakes.
Right.
So you come in and drink out these goblets made of ivy and you won't have any ill effects.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know you can wash your clothes with ivy leaves?
Did not know that.
Yeah,
That
if you get like a little bag, a cotton bag, put some ivy leaves in it, because they have I can't remember the technical word for it, but it's like it creates like a foaming cleanser, and you can wash your clothes with ivy leaves.
That's incredible. But you are into that, Lee, aren't you? I know you do a lot of lotions and potions.
Yeah, I quite like. Yeah, I think I've got a bit of like a bit of witch in me. I do like making potions and stuff, and soaps and stuff, all from natural organic ingredients. I find it interesting to strip them back to the kind of core of what you actually need in a hand wash, because there's so many chemicals in most hand washes that you really don't need. It's just there, to make it look better or smell better. I use a lot of natural oils to make them smell. I think
that's fantastic.
We should do another show on that.
Absolutely. Listen out for that.
It's nearly time to wrap up. So I know there's another couple you want to quickly go through. Skimia is one that's a
for an
favourite.
Outdoor planting, bring it in because it has tiny little flower buds that are red open on Skimia. The low maintenance,
so good.
Absolutely
so
beautiful.
Good.
I mean, there's one called Fragrant Cloud, which is a male, and it smells absolutely divine. If you plant it up next to your door, so it's a winter container, low maintenance, slow growing, evergreen, and tolerate shade. And it's a misconception that they are ericaceous, because they're actually not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not. People think they have to be grown in ericaceous compost, and they don't. And if you've got it grown in a container and the leaves are going yellow, it's usually because it's dry at the roots or too much sun. It's not chlorosis. It's not Lyme-induced chlorosis. So,
The best ones I've ever grown are in the shadiest place I've ever seen.
Yeah, they do enjoy shade.
And they get well watered because they're quite wet, because they're under like a drip line of a house. So they get lots of water, and they are in full shade. They're grown with Sarcococca, which is a Christmas box. That's another one that we've not got time to talk about. But those two together just smell incredible.
They do prefer shade, but if you want to grow in full sun, I would recommend Q Green. That will tolerate full sun as long as it don't dry out. So to quickly skim it, and then one last one to end on, Lee, if it's okay. It's Christmas cactus, Schlumbergia. So these are beautiful. Mine's in flower now. I've grown mine in a big teacup. It's a huge teacup, and it's absolutely full of flowers. But people that grow it tend to come in and say, why are the buds dropping off my cactus? It's usually in fluctuating temperatures or overwatering tend to drop as well. Right. But they're quite easy to grow, and they'll tolerate a little bit more shade more than normal cactus. So I do recommend that as a nice gift for someone at Christmas.
And what are you doing for Christmas this year?
I'm coming to you, Lee.
Oh, yes. You're cooking the turkey. Well, that's all we've got time for today, Dawn. Thank you so much for another exciting podcast. I think we've got a couple more subjects to come out of today. Just before we go, I want to let everyone know that they can get in touch or follow us on Instagram at The Northern Designer. But from me and from Dawn, happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
Take care.